Guns have been around for thousands of years. They have done bad things and they have done great things as well. The first gun was made and fired in China. So how did it make its way into European and American wars? How did firearms end up all over the world if they were made in China? Let's find out. Gunpowder was created in the Han Dynasty by Wei Boyan. It was first used to treat skin infections, but soon the Chinese military found that you can make bombs from it. This led to the idea of the first gun. The first gun to be constructed and used was called the fire lance. This happened in 1364. Fire lances saw action in many sieges across western China. Fire lances were traded along the most known land trading network, the Silk Road, in 1380. That's how guns first started to spread. 100 years after Europeans got their hands on fire lances, they started making improvements. They made it shoot farther and much more accurate. Right around when Virginia was settled, a new trade route from the Americas was formed. 23 years later, the famous flintlock pistol appears. In 1750, pistol dueling came into fashion. Flintlock pistols and muskets were also used in the Revolutionary War that occurred 5 years later. Later in that war, a new technique for making rifles was invented, called rifling. They put lines on the inside of the barrel that made the bullet spin. When the bullet spins, it increased the accuracy and range. This invention also made sniper rifle possible. "85 years later, the iconic back-action lock revolver appeared. They were shipped westward to help fend off outlaws, but that didn't work out so well. You see, because they were favored by the outlaws in the West. The back-action lock was a great improvement over the flintlock because it allowed firearms to fire more bullets quicker. They made pistols and rifles even more deadly. Years later in the Civil War, repeaters were invented. These rifles fired 7 shots in 15 seconds. The Civil War also produced the Gatling gun. These two ideas were just the stepping stone on the way to the first fully automatic rifle. Let's fast forward to 1903. By now, armies around the world are using cartridge rifles like the Lee Enfield. The Lee Enfield was the main British rifle used in the First World War. They also used mounted machine guns. These models would eventually make their way to America where they'd be approved upon. World War I was known for its trench warfare, and the Lee Enfield was a great weapon for hitting targets downrange and in cover. Let's jump forward to the Second World War. Germans were the only ones who had manufactured assault rifles. The German produced the machine pistol 40 or MP40, carbine 98K, while Americans used Thompson M1A1, M1 carbine, or the M1 Garand. Now let's take a look at the Vietnam War. At the early stages of the war, American infantry used the M1 Garand and the M14 rifle. Later in the war, America produced its first widely used assault rifle, the M16 and the M16A1. Every soldier loved to use it and it was the most reliable weapon the US produced. On the other side of the war, the most known weapons was being handed out to foot soldiers, the Avtomat Kalashnikov 1947, or better known as AK-47. These two guns are widely known by many people because of how much soldiers favored them. Now it's modern day, and every country has their own gun that they produce. Every gun model today is around because of the fire lance being traded on the Silk Road. Americans have their M16, and the Russians still use the AK-47 because it's so reliable. Many dangerous people have had their lives ended by a gun, and many good people have also lost their lives to guns. Guns are just a tool, and depending on how they're used, you can help or hurt people. This is all possible because a simple weapon was put into a massive trade network. Today, trade networks span the world, and so do guns.